All right, so recruiting yesterday, it was a big day. It's a big time in the calendar right now, obviously, with high school football cranking up. We trust Shea Dixon and his crew over at On 3 more than anyone in this field. They're as good as you'll find in the country covering a specific school. If you check out On 3 right now and what they got going on at the Bengal Tiger, it is really in-depth look at Kaden Durham and his commitment yesterday and what could be next for LSU. So jump on over at on3.com and grab a subscription over at the Bengal Tiger. It's well worth it heading into the season. And Shea is back with us just like he is every Friday morning here on the Jordy Culotta show. Shea D, good morning. How are you?
Doing well. First time in the new room, side room.
Yeah, that's right, man. Little side room. That's right.
I didn't notice you picked out 3 nice photos behind you. Those are 4 killers right there.
Classics, right?
I don't even know what.
Look to your left.
Oh boy, I don't even know what order I'd rank them in.
I know it was tough to break down for the 3 for just the shelf here. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the Kevin Falk, Nikki Savoy picture that is behind us, which is a classic from the mid-'90s. Tyrann Mathieu punt return, of course, to against Arkansas, and then a young Kobe being guarded by a legend at that time, Michael Jordan. All right, so yesterday, Shea, take me to Duncanville High School. Sammy Speegs.
Day 1 of school.
Middle of it, bro.
Oh, boy. Wrapped up. And y'all produce stuff here. We were on the fly.
Ooh.
So
we were all talking about it, the anxiety.
Y'all been there.
Golly.
So, obviously, the
Can
first...
y'all play videos?
What?
Do y'all do videos? We couldn't do the video. We told them we couldn't do the video, and they still cut us. And
I think that they had done like a whole Zoom setup thing with Duncanville to go over everything.
I'm freaking out right now.
I hear you.
PTSD.
And one of the first things is like, now our Wi-Fi might be spotty, and it's like, whoa. Y'all are like the best football program in the country right now. It's day 1 of school. Your Wi-Fi is spotty in the gym. And then Spiegelman, he called me after, and he's like, just tell me it was okay. I was like, you made it through. Don't worry.
You're all right.
He said that when they did the run-through, that Kaden, he was like, look, this is what we're going to do. And he's like, are you going to stay seated or are you planning to get up? Caden's like, no, I'm going to be seated. And Sam's like, it wasn't 15 seconds in that he's like up, moving around with his sister.
I'm going to just stand up real quick.
So did that, and then Simmons got up, and then after that, I think they were like, let's wrap.
Let's go, bro. Let's get the hell out of here. All right, so let's start with I want to focus a lot on what they got in Durham.
Sure.
Tell me what they missed in Simmons, where they were in that recruitment, and where were you when he threw the Texas hat on? Were you surprised that was no?
I mean, I think Simmons had a quote to On 3 that said it came down to the final days, but he wanted to take care of his mom and his brother, and he said that Texas stepped up and did that. And in this NIL world, I guess you can say things like that, and people get it. And look, he does. He has a special needs brother. I think that for a long time, the idea of not having to uproot the family and move was something that, was beneficial to Texas beyond any NIL stuff or anything like that. And I just describe it as this because it was described to me this way by the Texas side. This was their Leonard Fournette moment. Like, number 1 overall player in the state, which they've signed the number 1 overall player in the state of Texas once in the past decade.
Wow.
And it was B.J. Foster, a safety. It's not like it's an edge rusher.
Right.
And in those 10 years, they never signed a 5-star edge rusher coming out of Texas. So This was kind of that 1-2 combo of if they didn't get him, much like the Fournette days, it felt, and maybe not so much, but they said if Colin Simmons doesn't pick Texas or doesn't sign with Texas, heads will roll. Like, it was that kind of recruitment. So if you view it through that lens, you understand how much more important it was to Texas. And for that reason, I'm not surprised that they did what they had to do.
Wow. So in that vein, is it over?
I mean, I think it is. I'm certain that Colin will pop back up on campus at some point.
Sure.
And we're riding again. Here we go. We're back on the roller coaster. But yes, I would say if he's picked him now, I'd say it's over.
Okay, so before we get to Durham, what's the emphasis now on defensive line?
Dominic McKinley. And again, it's not quite the same, apples to oranges, but Dominic McKinley is the number one player in Louisiana. He is a 5-star defensive lineman, and maybe more importantly than edge right now, he plays D-tackle, which is a position that they have not hit hard, with big names out of the high school ranks. And we saw them last year after Mason Smith went down. They had nobody to rotate. And then this year they had to go heavy in the portal for defensive linemen beyond, Makai Wingo and Guillory and guys like that, just so that they would have depth. So that makes Dominic McKinley coming out of Acadian all the more important. And September 2nd, their first game is when he's going to announce.
Wow. And he said to expect a surprise, or?
All these kids are saying that, I think.
Yeah.
But I think he said, he did say something along I think it will surprise some people. But Ohio State, Texas, A&M, USC, Oklahoma have all been teams kind of in the mix. 4 of those got official visits in June. LSU doesn't really do that with in-state guys. They hold them till closer to signing day. So I think he's probably, like every school that hosted him is like, oh, we got a shot. So got a little bit of a 4 to 5 man race here.
Tell me about what they get in Durham.
Oh, boy. Not many guys who are 5'10", 5'10", 220, or a little over 200, run sub-10 5s in the 100. He's got some wind-dated 10 2s that he was touching, and like that's what Jelani Watkins is running, and he's your 5'10" speedy wideout, and now your running back runs that. I mean, they were racing against each other in 6A. They had, when Jelani Watkins won the state in the 4x1, Duncanville got second. Kaden Durham was running 2 for him. So they are adding some absolute speed in those 2 guys that both have track scholarships at LSU. But think about this. Pop quiz, and then I'll just give the answer. Let you think about it for a second. Who was last out-of-state running back Frank signed?
I was thinking about this yesterday.
Spencer Ware.
Spencer Ware.
That's 13, 14 years ago.
And that was
2010.
And that was really like Stadrawa.
Yeah, I mean, that was the old Midwest days.
Yeah.
And obviously, Spencer went on to have a great NFL career and college career and all that. But it was always Louisiana guys, right? And so for him to circle an out-of-state kid after signing Trey Holly and Caleb Jackson last year, Harlan Berry, number 1 running back in the country next year, and James Simon coming out of North Louisiana as a top 10 running back. So you were kind of had backed, sandwiched in between those 2 years of big-time in-state guys. It was, hey, do we go outside the state? And they circled Durham, and it was definitely Durham or bust. And there were times probably 6 months ago where I was like, man, this is a kid whose mom was a sprinter at OU. He didn't even leave Oklahoma until just before his sophomore year. Then he moved to Texas and went to Duncanville. He's got the area code tattooed on his leg. I mean, Dad and them still live there. He grew up in an Oklahoma household, and for them to be able to, Oklahoma wanted him badly, and everybody thought he was going to go to Oklahoma. So this is why you bring Frank Wilson back, right? Like, he can go out there and win you recruitments like this.
Yeah. The running back room, you mentioned it, next year with Barry and Simon, you've already got Jackson and Holly in. I guess this kind of goes back to what you just said, the Frank Wilson effect in full effect.
Yeah, and I think people look at it now and are like, well, they've got 8 running backs. Like, how do you even convince Durham to come? Half those guys are not going to be on this. I mean, half of them are seniors and guys. If Logan Diggs, has a big year, does he try the NFL waters out? Whatever it might be. So, very quickly, I think we will look up and it will just be those young guys left on roster, and then a guy like Durham. So, I think we will look back on that edition, I think, many times and be like, oh, boy, that was a big day for them. If they didn't have him this class, they would have probably had to go portal hunting if that room does get cut in half like you probably think it would be.
What's the calendar now move with high schools starting school and high schools starting practice, and LSU put the pads on yesterday? How's that changed the recruiting calendar?
Yeah, I didn't realize everybody's in school now. I was driving over here, and it was just
it's mayhem.
Day one, or it's Friday. I didn't know that day one for a lot of kids was Friday. Day one for Duncanville was Thursday. What happened to Mondays?
Syllabus.
They don't do that.
Good
I always skip those first couple
Right.
days.
That's right.
Just showed up after that. I don't even get it. But yeah, they are in a dead period right now. So when September kicks up, it'll be back to hosting kids for games. So that Grambling game, which that same weekend, Jackson State plays Southern here in town.
Yeah.
That'll be a huge weekend.
Wow.
And they'll have a lot of recruits in for that. So that'll kind of be the next step of hosting recruits and being face-to-face with them.
LSU put the pads on yesterday from a practice standpoint. Anything jump out to you here early on in practice?
I think that it's clear that, well, one, on offense, you're so familiar with what they have now, which is a good thing, right?
Are you surprised by Lunsford getting some first-team reps?
I didn't go to practice yesterday. Well, where was Miles Frazier? Was he out or something? I don't know.
Miles Frazier practice.
Yeah, and
Really?
Dellinger?
They were just Dellinger's on the other side.
Yeah, okay. I think they'd probably – I mean, that's the Brad Davis MO, too. We've seen it to start seasons.
Find the best
just
five.
keep putting guys in there until I figure out who the best five are. And he's not afraid to rotate guys during the season. And you know that O-line gets hurt more than any other position. I mean, every week someone's banged up and may or may not be able to go for you. So this is probably just about getting as deep as you can. And hell, you don't sign a transfer veteran O-lineman if you don't plan to give him a little look, see what he's about. But if there's anybody that's put together a solid room, and I guess that goes into what I was saying about the offense, it's Brad Davis has a deep room. Listening to Denbrock before I started, it makes me I thought about it again. I mean, I know he's tasked with recruiting tight ends, so you quickly forget about it. He might be one of the best recruiters on the staff. I mean, they had one tight end coming back, Mason Taylor, and he goes out and gets you 3 high school guys, including Pimpton, then turns around and gets you Gilbreth out of JUCO, who had a lot of options and went to LSU and shut it down before even going on his other visits. So I think that now that they've got tight end depth, all 5 O-linemen, and then you throw in a Lunsford or guys like that. Throw in Marlon Martinez. 6-7 guys have college starts. Jaden, you got Nuss. And then all these receivers, at least the starting 3, Kyron and BT and Malik all worked with Nuss and Jaden a year ago. You've got 8 running backs. And I wouldn't – it's not even like you point to any of the 8 and be like, they'll never play. Like, that guy shouldn't be on LSU's roster. Like, all of them are very good. They've all just got – either they're young or they just got off injury or they haven't – Bradford and Emory, you've been away from the team. Now you're back. So it's like everyone comes with a little bit of a question mark. But, again – I think that the offense to me just seems like, okay, y'all can really take this to the next level.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of transfer. We mentioned new faces, but one thing that stood out is that this freshman class has made an impact, and not just Lance Hurd and Deshaun Womack. I mean, and Taviano. I mean, it's guys like Mac Markway and Ashton Stamps, and guys that
love Ashton Stamps.
You just maybe didn't have as high expectation, or at least I didn't coming into the season. Did you expect this class to be as deep and impactful as early as they feel like they are?
I knew Markway would have a chance because they had to have a blocker, and that's what he is. I mean, he can be an inline blocker for you. So the worry was that he didn't play his last 2 years of high school football. He was injured. So, I mean, there was a thought. I guess I am surprised that he's out there. He was here in the spring and is holding it down, ready to roll, and that's a great thing because that's what you wanted. So let me think if I'm surprised. Wouldn't be surprised by Hurd. Won't be surprised by anything Womack does this year. Shelton Sampson seems to be creeping up. I didn't know really what the order of receivers, nor do I think we know right now. You signed 4 freshman receivers. Can any of them get out there and get some burn when you did return your 1 and 2 deep, that are guys who – that first team have played a ton. The second team is like Hilton and Ibieta and I guess Aaron Anderson. Like, certainly those guys will play. But did any of these freshmen play? And Shelton Sampson's been getting some reps with second team and moving up. So I think that's a good thing. Defensively, I guess I am surprised that – and I love Stamps. He's probably one of his biggest fans vocally coming out of high school. I think he's just a really great player. And Rummel produces some great kids. But they signed all those – corners out of the transfer portal that I thought it was going to be Denver Harris and somebody else. Now it's Cy Alexander and Deuce Chestnut, and Denver Harris was running third team at times, and you've got Ashton Stamps running second team, and Welsh, who's your only returning cornerback on roster that is a scholarship guy. I worry about the corner room. Not that I don't think those guys are talented. I'm with Brian Kelly at Media Day. I have no idea what they'll bring until we go out and play Florida State, and they roll out three or four of the best receivers in the country, and you've got to man up with them in week one.
I know
that's when we'll know.
I know they had to have the numbers, but J.K. Johnson was a guy I think that was really kind of having and trending towards being a frontline player.
And what did Kelly say, that he broke his leg, or at least a fracture of some sort that's going to be out for a while. So now you can't count on that, which means that you probably will be counting on an Ashton Stamps, maybe a Toviano dropping down, trying to get creative in different ways, or you just play your best two corners and just don't come off the field. Mm-hmm. And if that's Cy Alexander and Chestnut, so be it.
Sage Ryan seems to be having a pretty solid camp.
I'm a big Sage Ryan fan. I know people. It reminds me of how people talked about Damone Clark before he really kind of came through as a senior. And I also feel people think that way about Greg Penn. The staff loves them. They play them all the time. They've got other options. Like, certainly there's some redeeming qualities, right? Like, these guys are way better football players than you give them credit for.
Right.
I think Sage Ryan's going to have a breakout year.
I agree. I think
he's been getting first-team reps at nickel. So, and they're not that deep at safety. So if something happens, he's got to go back there. But I do like the Andre Sam addition.
Yeah.
That was their final piece to add out of the portal. And
that's another Frank Wilson kid,
really
right?
good. Yeah, he played Frank at McNeese, and then he went to Marshall. Then he transferred home to Tulane in December. But as soon as he got that LSU call, it was like, all right, I'm coming. We got 1 year left. Let's do it. So, and they'll do it. Kelly already said it gives them a chance to do some 3 safety looks. But at the same time, Burns hasn't gone through a whole year where he's been healthy for you, which now you've got another guy at least that you can roll out there in Sam. And if Greg Brooks gets banged up ever, you can start a guy like Sam. If not, he's rotating in plenty. So I think that was an unsung addition for him that happened late over. I think it happened in May, actually, that people just kind of probably forgot about. He wasn't there for spring ball or any of that. But, boy, he's looked good in fall camp.
Denbrock kind of perked up when he talked to you about Chris Hilton.
Yeah.
And what's the time on Chris Hilton? It's got to be now, right?
Yes. I would think he's got a couple of years left of it. Being here, I don't think he's going pro or anything after his true junior year, but I guess he's also redshirted because of his injuries. I remember in the spring, he was like, I'm fully healthy, but he was going through his injuries from when he left Zachary to now, and it was every year, this knee, that knee, this shoulder, and then you could understand why he's had to just battle. But he made it through all spring, ready to roll. Now he's made it through the summer. Now he's in fall camp. He's healthy, and that's the key there. I mean, we're talking about a kid who was high jumping 7 feet as a freshman in high school. Like, his dad was a star on the track coming out of high school. The athleticism's there. He's got to be healthy. And it looks like he is.
Yeah.
And he's a take the top off guy.
No doubt.
I mean, he could roll.
And now with the way that Jaden Daniels seems to be confidently letting it fly. I mean, that was something that Denbrock said. They're still stressing and pushing him to do it, but he's definitely catching on. It's something, a piece that I think that LSU will feature this year is throwing the ball down the field.
Well, a lot of people say that's the missing piece. I don't know how you would agree or disagree or rank that, but a lot of people say if this offense has taken the next step, and a lot of people being Kelly and Denbrock even, but they describe it as that explosive element of the passing game has to be added.
Yeah.
Now, that could be dumping it off to Aaron Anderson in space. That's explosive, but you have to have that downfield piece, and they have a lot of guys on roster that can do it, and it's just a matter of often knowing, even as a quarterback, the throw doesn't have to be perfect because Malik Neighbors down there or Brian, whomever is talented enough to go up and get it. And if you trust that, then you're in good shape. And we know Nussmeier will do it. I love that every time. I don't know until he's the full-time starter, he will always have the gunslinger at least mentality of this first play.
I'm going.
Yeah, you better.
Stewie thinks Malik Neighbors can be a Biletnikoff finalist.
I believe that.
Is that too much?
No, he went over 1,000 yards last year. So the only thing that would, I think, prevent him from doing that if they would just spread the ball around so much. But what's wild to me, I think he had over 1,000 yards and he had 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns.
I don't even know how that happens.
I know, it's tough. It's tough to do.
Very.
I mean, with as many,
you got to be running out at the 1,
right? I mean, like just as many
Madden
targets,
or something. It's
and
like
he had high catch count. I mean, it was like he had. It's a weird number. It's definitely a weird stat.
And that's not on him. I'm not saying
No,
that.
I agree.
I think
It's
that a
just
lot
one of
times
those anomalies of football
He
where
got
you're
him
like
into the red zone, and then they just
punching in
it.
with Noah
Yeah.
Kane.
Pound it.
Special teams, the options that they have at punt returner on this team, I think you kind of get the feeling like they have a playmaker back. Like they have a guy that could bust it open for you if you needed it in Aaron Anderson. Do you ultimately think he's the guy?
I do. I think that's why you went and got him. I mean, he had 20 touchdowns on special teams coming out of high school, and everybody in New Orleans said this is one of the most electric kids we've seen as a receiver and in the return game when he left Carr. And he was a big-time get for Bama. So to get him back was big. And now I think you knew he was going to be a piece in the receiver room, but there was that feeling that he was the piece to the punt return game. And they've got other options. They've had Jaylen Brown back there, Kyle Parker, a couple freshmen. Let me think who else has been back there.
Greg Clayton.
Greg Clayton, who saved their season a year ago simply because he would catch it every time, which was an issue. I never thought they should have gone away from Malik Neighbors.
Yeah,
And I may sound dumb. He fumbled too in that opener against Florida State, never got another chance. But it just seemed to me like you then put that thought into everyone's head of like, nope, on to the next guy. And then Jack Besh, it hits off his helmet. And, he, Tennessee on the first play. Now you're on to the next guy. And it just, until Greg Clayton got in there and was just like, I can catch it every time, and that'll be good enough. And he's a good athlete. But you wanted more from that position. There's no way they don't have guys on this roster that can do something for you in the return game with all the speed and athleticism they have. So the odds-on favorite is Anderson, but yes, they have options.
Omar Spates and Harold Perkins were named a Butkus Award watch list yesterday. Not surprising. One name that I think that we kind of lose in the shuffle, but we'll probably see a lot of, is Whit Weeks, right? Because of just when I think linebacker, I think high talent, low depth, right? Like, I mean, you can't lose anyone, but they seem like Weeks is a guy, Whit Weeks is somebody that they are starting to trust a little bit. Greg
Penn, I think, is the guy that's going to play a ton.
Yeah, I agree.
And then after Greg Penn and Spates and Perkins, you only really have the Weeks brothers. I mean, they've got only one more scholarship linebacker who's a true freshman. And, why am I blanking? What's his name, Stewie?
Christian Braithwaite.
Braithwaite. I was going to say Christian Barmore. That's the Bama old D lineman. Braithwaite. But I don't think he's a year one middle linebacker player for you, not with the guys in front of him. So I think both Weeks brothers, like I liked Wes Weeks a lot last year. Whit Weeks is an excellent player. And does he pass his brother up this year? I don't know, but both of them are going to play. Certainly on special teams too.
Whit Weeks had an interception yesterday.
He picked us off?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the red zone, I think.
Yeah, in the red zone.
He had that pick in the spring game too. Took it back for a touchdown.
Yeah.
He's a really, really good player. But I would think both Weeks brothers are going to play.
Cornerback, Deuce Chestnut.
Seems like they like him. I mean, he had a very good first 2 years of his college career at Syracuse. He played at a high level. Was an all ACC type of guy. When you see him, he does not look like what your normal like kind of shorter, not long arms, but just makes plays, and they'll take it. Right now, him and Zy Alexander are very clear cut the 1 and 2s. It's basically just been them as first team guys.
What's the message they're sending to Denver Harris? What do you make of Denver Harris's start to camp?
You're either you're buying all the way in, or you're going to run on the third team. I think it's as simple as that. Dangle the carrot. There's no way he's not talented enough to play. So we saw him play half a year last year, and he was a midseason All-SEC guy in year one. So, and we know what he did in high school at North Shore. It's just about buying in. And we know that Kelly is not going to play any games in that regard, nor will Robert Steeples. So I think my hope is that we see a lot of Denver Harris this year. That means he is bought in, and you know the risk that you took of taking a kid who had been in some trouble at his last spot and had been sidelined because of it. Him and a group of players at A&M, all the teams that took those guys are hoping that, hey, if they buy into our culture, we're good, and that's what you hope Brian Kelly can do.
Who's the best two corners on this team?
talent-wise,
Mm-hmm.
Denver and Zy Alexander probably, I would say. Zy looks really good.
Where was he coming out? What was the book on him? Do you remember where he was? No.
Where is he from? Lauraville?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I
Right.
think he had played baseball too. I think he was I think you look back at guys like that now, and you're like, oh, they didn't get any big, FBS offers. But then you could look back and be like, well, he was a 3-sport athlete out of a small town that, just got overlooked. And but also there's the reality that you go to a Southeastern and they develop you for 3 to 4 years, and now you're a really good player who can come in and play in the SEC. Out of all the corners they signed, I wondered with him, the jump from FCS is big. And the other kids were coming from A&M and Ohio State and Syracuse, where they're playing Florida State and all those teams every year. Mm-hmm. At Southeastern, you're not. But, boy, he is running stride for stride with Neighbors, Thomas, Lacey, all those guys. I think he looks like the best one out there.
I know we're jumping all over the place. Running backs got 8 guys, and as we mentioned, those guys will be on the way out. You mentioned Harlem Berry and James Simon. James Simon's from North Louisiana. His dad played over a decade.
Yeah, John.
In the NFL now. And is now on Hugh Jackson's staff at Grambling. What's the likelihood that they land both?
I think that they will. I do. And I think that they've got enough connections to both that will serve well, not just being from Louisiana, but Frank Wilson, a lot of people behind the scenes, Sherman Wilson, have worked with those, in John Simon's case, been around him, worked with them. In Barry's case, Frank's the mayor. He knows everybody.
Right.
He probably him and Harlem's dad or mom were best friends.
That's what I said. He's probably Harlem's godfather.
No, I think Jaluk is. No, for real.
I think really.
Yeah. So there's some extra motivation for Frank to shut that one down.
Wow, that's so good.
But yeah, I think that they'll get both of them. Which will be a hell of a combo coming off Durham.
Little Jay is over at U High now.
Yeah, and day one was this week.
It was on Wednesday, and
syllabus don't drop till Thursday. But little Jay, we need you to come by on Wednesday.
I said, Jay, what was today like? First thing he said, I saw Keelan 3 times.
Yes, I saw his mom posted the picture of first day of school, and the brother was in 9th grade.
Yeah, Emmanuel.
Yeah, and he was just above Keelan's shoulder now, and I messaged her. I was like, they're both in high school. Time flies.
Yeah,
they're both about to be on the field together now.
Emmanuel, is it Moses?
Yeah.
They
both look
He's got
exactly.
the biggest set of hands. He's got Odell size hands like now. I mean, the kid he's freakishly built.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not built like Dylan and Keelan. It's kind of like Bronny and Bryce James. Like they're just 2 different type style. I mean, like when you look at Keelan and Emmanuel and Dylan, you're like, man, this one's a lot different than those 2.
And those 2 are,
like predators
cut from
they look
stone.
They look
Someone asked me, they're like, man, what are they feeding those kids? I was like, it's DNA. It's trust me, you'll never be able to eat anything or do anything to look like these kids.
Nothing grows from the earth that makes you look like that.
I remember when Dylan was coming through, he might have been in like 10th grade, and I mean, he was on the cover of ESPN the magazine in like middle school.
Yeah, 8th grade.
By 10th grade, he looked better than any dude on LSU's current team. And I remember asking his dad out of camp, like, what is his workout routine or whatever? And he's like, just the jail workout routine. It's just
push-ups and
straight
pull-ups.
up push-ups and pull-ups. That's it.
Right.
No weights needed. He doesn't even...
I mean,
toss in U-High's workout schedule, and that's what you look like.
Stewie and I debate this. You'd probably be a great resource for this. I think I
Are
called.
y'all split on the vote?
I called all of Dylan's snaps
right.
at U-High. Didn't miss a snap from his freshman to junior year.
He's a dedicated fan there. Just didn't miss a snap.
No, we were doing the radio.
Oh, I know.
And I've seen Keelan play twice. And I thought Dylan is one of the top 10 players that come out of this area in the last 20 years. I think Keelan's better. He thinks Dylan is a little bit better. I think Keelan takes the nudge right here. It's a podcast debate. You know what I mean? Like you take Keelan, I'll take Dylan. Let's play.
It's like I don't think you could go wrong.
Right.
I would take either of them.
But Keelan's a little different than what
he's a little
Dylan,
bit different of a player. I think Keelan can also cover pretty well. Dylan was, I think, a lot bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could go either way. A little bit different players. or do I just take the man?
Right.
I'm off from both.
That's
I'm on
right.
to the next one.
You take them both. That's right.
And let's see. Chad Jones Jr. is at U High right now.
That's right. That's right.
There might be one or two others. U High's got some kids on that team.
There is Collis Temple's daughter, who is a volleyball player in Jordan's grade, who's an absolute stud. I mean, there's athletes everywhere. I mean,
Rohan's son is at McNeese.
He's
now,
at McNeese.
so.
Micah.
Yeah,
He's
Micah.
at McNeese. His daughter is at Dunham.
She's in college now.
She made it to college now. Okay.
Yeah, I think she was moving in today, actually.
We've got a chat question here for Shea. Orgy Culotta asks, hashtag Ask Shea, what's the scouting report on Xavier Ford from Leesville? Dude seems to be good to pass on, but does he have an offer?
He has an offer.
Too good to pass on, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he has an offer. He is your big bruising back. He's like 220. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to be a guy who flashes in the non-pad setting like he does on a Friday night. I saw him work with Harlan Berry and James Simon this summer at camp with Frank Wilson, and he doesn't catch it like those two do. He doesn't do the things like the comp for Harlan Berry is Jamal Charles. Like, that's not who Ford is. Ford is everyone put on their pads, and I'm going to run right over you. I mean, he is going into his junior year of high school over 220 pounds. So
Damn.
He could be a linebacker too as well. I think he'd be big enough to do either one. But yes, he's got an offer.
Nyquilus Dilwad, Shea, how are
His
you
names
wearing
are
pants
amazing.
and a turtleneck in Baton Rouge on August 11th?
Yeah, well, it's morning, and I went through this whole week and did no laundry because I was just kind of scramming for these Duncanville kids. And then I woke up today, and I was getting going, and Jordy's like, "We good for this morning?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got to get out of here."
Scramble out of here.
And I just grabbed the first things in the closet and rolled. So I'm going back home and taking everything off and just sitting there.
Jason Brumfield, Shea goes to Paris and hadn't stopped dressing like
Yes, exactly.
it. Shea's just missing a cigarette and a smoking jacket. It's good to see you. Thank you.
That's it.
I know
That's
you're
for Ask
busy.
Shay.
I know you're busy. I know you're
Those weren't
very
even
busy.
Ask Shays. Those were just
They're
comments.
just bagging on you.
I don't know if that's. I don't know.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. I'm not going to cry about it, but
Anything on the way out? Anything we should know on the way out? Recruiting? Anything to
let's
watch
see.
here? Anything going on? Explain to me the RPM now. I know you used to do a crystal ball thing. Now it's
yeah,
what?
same thing. We're
Okay.
prediction machine. September 1, Dominic McKinley. We'll see if Wardell Mack wants to do anything before his senior year, but those are your two in-state seniors that are sort of next up here that the Duncanville stuff has passed. Those are the guys we're watching.
Shea Dixon on 3. Read the work at on3.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Shea Dixon.